Listen, I'm 24 and I still can't forget one day I lived through in Palestine. Every airplane is a trigger. Every loud noise is a trigger. Every slam of a door is a trigger. And it brings me back.
Welcome to This is Palestine. I'm Diana Boutou. In today's episode, I speak with Yara Eid, who is a Palestinian journalist and human rights activist from Gaza, though she's currently based in London. Yara has worked with international organizations, including Amnesty International, and she uses her very large platform to shed light on life under Israeli occupation and under Israeli apartheid, particularly in Gaza. Yara is known for her viral interview on Sky News, where she directly challenged the anchor's dehumanizing portrayal of Palestinians. Her calm yet firm response highlighted the media's double standards when it comes to reporting on Palestine. This interview brought global attention to the biased narratives that are often used when covering Israel's genocide in Gaza. Yara's reporting focuses on the lived realities of life under Israeli occupation and under Israeli siege and blockade. She began her career by interning at Al Ain Media Company in Gaza, which was founded by two journalists, Rushdie Sarraj and Yasser Morteja. Rushdie was killed in the early weeks of this ongoing genocide in Gaza, while Yasser was killed in April of 2018 while covering the Great March of Return. Yara has worked as a war journalist on the ground, covering the 2021 Israeli aggression on Gaza and documenting its devastating impact on civilians. Finally, Yara's recent work has appeared in outlets such as Al Jazeera and the Los Angeles Times. Through her reporting, she shares not only the broader realities of Israeli attacks, but also on her personal losses, including family members and friends who've been killed by Israel. Since October of 2023, during Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza, Israel has killed 90 of Yara's family members and close friends, as well as press colleagues who've supported her throughout her career. She's also spoken out about the growing challenges that Palestinian journalists are facing, from media blackouts to the targeting of the press themselves. In this episode, we take a closer look at a powerful voice of activism from Gaza, a Palestinian who has transformed the haunting trauma and the loss that she's experienced at the age of 14 during the Israeli war on Gaza in 2014 into tireless advocacy and activism. Welcome, Yara. Yara, it is such a pleasure to finally have you on the This is Palestine podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Anna. I really was looking forward to this from a long time, and it's amazing to speak to you personally. All of us, we're big fans of your work.
It's actually the opposite. I've been a fan of yours for quite some time, and I've been in awe watching you as you've navigated everything that you've lived through, and you've lived through a lot. So Yara, I want to step back for a second, and I want to just ask you to take us to the beginning. You are a journalist. You've worked in human rights. Why? What prompted you? Why were these the chosen fields when you could have done anything?
It all started in 2014 because I grew up in Gaza, as you know, and 2008 was the first assault on Gaza, and then 2012 it happened again, and they used white phosphorus, and they really traumatized us. But I was too little to know the meaning of death or fear. I was just a kid. I was a little kid, just like all of these kids that are being terrorized now. And I was 14 in 2014, and I remember escaping my refugee camp where I grew up my whole life in Al Burej camp and going to Rafah city, which, as you know now, is being obliterated and it doesn't exist anymore. But it's
Exists.
my grandparents' house. So I used to go there every Eid. We used to have sleepovers with my cousin. Rafah was like my traveling out of Gaza. It felt very far, even though Gaza is very small, but it felt like we were going on a trip. And we went to Rafah, we arrived. I remember we spent 10 days. Diana, I felt like I was in Canada. There was electricity, there was water, there was internet. I could talk to my cousins, I could follow up the news, and it was relatively quiet compared to Lebrej. And then on the last night of the what it was called the war, they announced a ceasefire. And as you know, we should never trust Israel with ceasefires. As we come closer to 6, they start intensifying the bombs, and it felt like they're bombing my house that I was in, my teta's house. And the bombs get more intensified, and I didn't know what it was happening. And the bombs are getting closer and closer and more terrifying. And then my parents wake up, and my brother starts crying. He was only 11. And we start realizing, maybe this is an invasion. Maybe we need to leave because suddenly they start bombing our neighbor's house and the smoke fills in my house. My teta just had an operation and she's barely able to walk. We're running on the streets, me with my brother, him refusing to leave his marbles, me with whatever I could carry, with my weak body as a 14-year-old. My dad, we're all standing in a line. We're not trying to be in a big gathering. And my dad is trying to be strong for us, even though I could see he's very scared. He's scared for us more than himself. We start running in the streets and then we call an ambulance. And the ambulance comes to get us. There is 500 feet between us, and then they bomb in front of the ambulance and behind him to prevent him from getting to us. So we keep running. And at that point, my grandma can't walk. So we try to carry her as much as I could. We left the stuff on the street, our belongings. We're running. I'm scared for the first time, but I don't show any point of my emotion. Nothing. I scream at my mother in a more encouraging way. Come on, you're my mom. You have to be strong for us. Don't cry. We're fine. We're safe. We're gonna be safe. Mama, yalla. My brother is crying. My teta is crying. Everyone is crying. But Yara is refusing to accept the reality she's in. And at that point, I could remember just thinking, if I survive this, if I manage to get out of this alive, the only thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write a book about this. So we keep running, and I remember at that point there was an orange taxi, like the old taxis in
Mhm.
Palestine, and it was open, the doors were open, and I was very confused. I was like, that's not safe. But what is safety at that point? And I see literally limbs hanging out of the car. And I was 14, Diana. I was 14. I didn't know that I could see this at 14. And I'm not the only kid. I bet that kids at 11, at 10, at 9, at 5 have seen more than I've seen at that point. And I get shocked. And at that point, I'm just like, I don't think we're gonna make it. Like, everyone is being killed. Like, at that point I'm speechless, and then we walk really like far. So from Hayl Jnane, which is a neighborhood in Rafah, to Ashabura, and on foot it's a long way with a grandma that can barely walk and children with their marbles and toys. And we walk, and then our family has to split into two because my mom was like, well, if we die, if I have to, like, half of us have to survive. So my mom took my brother and my dad took me. And then at some point, I just arrived to like a turning point, like, so you can go either inside the camp, Shabura, or not. And that's where my um cousins and my aunt was living. And then I see my cousin, and I think I saw safety when I saw him, because one familiar face finally, and I just collapse on the ground and I faint, and I don't remember what happened after. later, a few days later, we are in Khan Yunis, displaced at my uncle's wife's house. In Palestine, everyone is related somehow. Everyone is everyone's friend. Everyone is everyone's family. And we learn this by apartheid, by occupation. We are born to protect each other. We are born to love each other. After that day, I realized I can't be just normal Yara. I can't just grow up and be a doctor, treat patients that will have limbs broken or cut from Israeli weapons, but I need to tell the world about what I saw. And it was a promise I made to myself about the book I was writing. And I almost fulfilled that dream. I'm writing now, maybe not the book yet, but I'm writing. I'm telling the world about what I saw and what we're still seeing. And after that, just life was not the same. I aged 10 years by seeing what I saw. I got sick. I entered the hospital, Diana. I was traumatized. I had PTSD severe, but the only difference that it was not post, it was still going because the bombs would not stop and no one knew what's wrong with me because we don't have a great mental health like uh, facilities in Gaza, and I kept puking and I couldn't eat. My body was literally in survival mode. And after 2 months, and my mom was smart, she got me into a psychiatrist, her friend, and I realized what was happening to me and I started understanding. And that when I got better, even though I dropped out of school, imagine I was the top of my class. And this is how it happens to many Palestinian children. Mental health is 99% of Ghazawi children have PTSD, but it's not post, as I said, it's still going. And I got back to school after I got a bit better, started eating again. I lost half of my weight. I was dehydrated. I almost died, literally. Not from the bombs, but from the aftermath. And this is something we forget to talk about, the aftermath of violence. It's a psychological warfare, and sometimes the scars of psychological warfare can be much deeper than physical ones. After that, I decided, you know what? I'm not staying in Palestine. I need to go out and tell the world about what I witnessed so no child can hear the sounds of bombs more than the sounds of birds. And I traveled. I managed to get a scholarship at the age of 16, and I got on the first plane. I had to go to Egypt first, and they denied my father entry because they do. And then I went from Egypt to London. Yara, from a tiny refugee camp in Gaza, a war-torn country, into London, one of the biggest and busiest and most international, cities in the world. I didn't speak any English. I could say, "Hello, my name is Yara. I'm from Palestine." I couldn't even differentiate between my P's and B's. And when I was in Gaza, I interned at Ain Media, which is a media production company in Gaza, and Rushdie Sarraj was my boss. May he rest in peace. Yeah, Rushdie. Rushdie took me as a little girl and really taught me everything. He was a great, great person. Everyone loved him. He was a great mentor. And I came from London and I was like, listen, Rushdie, like, I am ready to embark on this journey with you. And he was the greatest teacher of all times. And I have to talk about his legacy for the rest of my life. And his wife, who continued his legacy now and restarted in media and is raising an child who is gonna be as brave as her father. And I remember when the 2021 assault happened in Gaza, I was in the office. And then my best friend Ibrahim, who's my camera person, I remember they got an airstrike announcement or like thing, and then Rushdie jumped into the press car and like with Sari, my other colleague, and Ibrahim. And Ibrahim, before he jumped in, he just threw like a press vest at me, and I wore it, and I covered the aggression from the ground. It was not. It's not like anything I've done before, Diana. It's heavy.
So, normally when people are covering, I don't like to use the term, but let's use it, wars, they're covering somebody else's. And here you
Their own.
were covering your own. You were covering your own. Can you talk a little bit about that, Yara? Because that's what the journalists today are facing. And not only are they facing that today, as they did during when you were there in 2021 and other journalists did in 2014 and in 2018 and in all of the years, but it's also that they are not believed by many of the Western press. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think it's one of the most, and I swear I don't say it because I am a journalist, it's one of the most conflicting jobs in the world. You are there as a human before anything else. I believe that everyone is subjective in some way or another because I'm reporting on my cousins or on my home that I grew up in. How can I be objective when I see my memories being wiped off? I believe that there's nothing called, objective journalism. You can try your best, but we have to recognize our positionality when it comes to these things. And when I covered it, it happened in a very weird way because I was still traumatized and I was in therapy for years to get over what I saw in 2014, what I mentioned to you. And I didn't even mention the full details, of like my best friend's house being bombed and not knowing if she was alive or not, and then her losing her father, who was like a father to me, etc. And like all of these things. But I think when I was on the ground, I didn't feel fear, which is weird. We are the ones who report the news. We are the ones who hold the mothers while they are weeping their losses. We are the ones who transfer patients sometimes. Sometimes I have to turn off my camera and actually help in real life. And you have to be ready for all of this. It's a lot. It's a lot. You have to be very quick instincts, very quick reflexes, and it's honestly what I can say. It's a lot, and you keep asking yourself, how can I be a better journalist? How can I report the news in a very humane way? How can I not dehumanize my people? How would I like to be reported on if I was the victim? I always ask myself this: if I see a woman who got shot and she's not in a very modest or like very private setting, would I be wanted to be, would I want someone to take pictures of me? I always ask myself this. Or if I get a news headline and I want to break it online or for a channel, I would always ask, am I 100% sure? If I'm 99% sure, I wouldn't report it, Diana. And that is what distinguishes a good journalist from just a mediocre one. Because if you are doubting everything you see, if you are not helping the fake news spread, which the occupation wants that, want the population to be even more scared. So I think it's one thing not to be just go viral. It's the ethics behind it. It's understanding the privacy of others, understanding the importance of a picture and when to take a picture. And Rushdie was the greatest teacher of all times about this. Sometimes we would arrive to a location, we drive like half an hour, and in the war, to drive half an hour, it's a long way. Wallahi, Diana would arrive and there would be like so many phones, people trying to take pictures, not journalists. Rushdie would be like, get back in the car. I'm like, no, I'm mad, I'm like, no, what do you mean we drove? There's something, I need to report on it. He's like, Yara, one day you'll learn when to be a journalist and when to just let go. And me and my colleagues try as much as we could to honor the ethics of journalism. So yeah, it's a really tough job, but I don't think I can do anything else, Diana. It's my passion.
So one of the things that I was telling you this before we started, one of the things that first caught my attention about you was the interview that you did with Sky News, which went viral. And as I was telling you, I wish that I had the strength at your age that you have
I'm
to
sure you
really
did,
take it on.
honestly. In
Oh no,
some other
not at
way.
all. Not at
Come
all.
on, you
Not
lived
at
in
all.
Haifa. I'm sure you saw some soldiers and, you know, didn't care and still was very brave. I mean, I believe every Palestinian is very brave in their own way to still exist under an apartheid and a genocide. I mean, look at us now.
That means we're survivors. We're
Yeah,
survivors.
exactly that.
Um, so talk us through this interview. What was happening and what's happened since?
I go in the interview, and then there's a problem with the way she frames the whole, like, what's happening. She says, 1,400 Israelis have been killed, and 25,000 Palestinians have died, or something, a number. I don't care, 5,000, whatever. And I swear, like, she introduces me, and I don't care whatever she says. I just go and I'm like, I can't believe you just said Israelis get killed. Like, this was so easy. She gave it to me on a plate, you know? So easy. I didn't even have to do any work. She was like, I was like, You can't say Israelis get killed and Palestinians die. We don't just drop dead. Like, what? We don't have some natural disaster that suddenly makes us die. Like, I'm sure as a journalist, you have a moral responsibility to say things as they are. You are twisting the truth. You are literally referring to us as subhuman. We just die? Like, what is that language? And I told her, I'm sure that I have a grasp of the English language, and that is just racist. Like, that is just like, you literally twisted the whole idea of what's happening. And she stayed silent. That was the best comeback. She just couldn't say one word. And then she says, but then she talks about how many people I've lost. I've lost a lot of my family members. Allah yarhamhum, may they rest in peace. Like 90 members or something. And she says, I swear it's a joke. The whole interview is just a joke. She says, you know, but what did you expect to happen after the Hamas attack? I told her, sure, I did not expect 90 members of my family to be killed when they are not members of Hamas. What do you mean? What did you expect? And then the question, the favorite question. I feel like when they were in journalism schools, the first question they got taught is, do you condemn Hamas? Wallahi al-azim, before Hamas existed, they knew this question. Do you condemn Hamas? I'm like, sorry, darling, I'm not condemning something I'm not part of. Why? I'm not a spokesperson for Hamas. Why am I condemning a whole party when I have nothing to do with them? Like, I wish I asked her, like, do you condemn? I think I did. Do you condemn the killing of Palestinians? Do you condemn the ethnic cleansing of us? Do you condemn the burning of our villages? Do you condemn the torture of our minors in prison cells, in literally prison chambers, you know? And yeah, honestly, I just left her speechless. And I love my online community. It went super viral. It was the biggest like interview that went viral. I think it has 20 million views on my Instagram now.
Mhm.
And then the comments were just like so funny. Like, it's just like they made me feel good. Um, and I think I spoke and I did something that everyone felt that they need to say. But they always get like gaslit into thinking they have to condemn Hamas, otherwise they're terrorists, or that language doesn't matter. But she really didn't have any ethics as a journalist. And I'm not afraid to say so. I haven't met many Western journalists who have ethics, to be honest, which is a big statement, and I'm generalizing, but it is true. And listen, I'm 24, and I still can't forget one day I lived through in Palestine. Every airplane is a trigger. Every loud noise is a trigger. Every slam of a door is a trigger. And it brings me back. I still have nightmares about what I witnessed. And I'm sure many of us, even you, have it.
I was going to ask, what do you think needs to change? But we should also talk about that aspect of it as well. So first,
Yeah.
let's talk about what needs to change in the media, and then let's talk about the issues that people don't talk about, which is mental health.
Yeah. I think number one is we need more educators who are coming from war zones, who are coming from Palestine, who are coming from Yemen, who are coming from Lebanon. People like you, Diana, you're doing a great job in that and like shifting narratives. And we need more media outlets to be including of Palestinian voices, to be amplifying Palestinian voices, and not just only, trying to put them on the spotlight to trick them. Yeah.
So Yara, you have now quite a following for obvious reasons, right?
Try to be
um,
funny and political.
for obvious reasons, you have a massive following and a huge, very powerful platform of close to 1 million followers. And what responsibility do you feel having that voice? And then what advice would you give to Palestinians, or really anyone who wants to speak out in terms of what's happening?
It genuinely feels great to have a platform because this is what makes us feel heard. This is what makes me feel like less alone, especially when I'm living in London, not in Palestine, and dreaming every single day. Wallahi, I dream every single day to go to Gaza. Wallahi, if they open the border now, after tomorrow, I'm going straight away. It's a huge responsibility because I have like this voice, and it's giving me more responsibility because I have to represent my people. I have to represent those unheard stories, unheard voices, children who are screaming and crying in the darkness. So I try my best to listen to my audience as much as I speak as well, because sometimes they are asking for questions that I sometimes don't have the answers to, and I can direct them to other people. Or sometimes we can grow together and plan big protests. Like I spoke a few weeks ago at a London protest, there was like 500,000 people. A year and a half into the genocide, 500,000 people decide they come from all over the UK, take the train, come and protest for Palestine. And we are seeing a growing movement, definitely. More articles have been written, more protests like ever. Like, I think it's the biggest protesting in history, maybe after
Mhm,
Black Lives Matter or
mhm,
even before. I
mhm.
don't know. I don't know the statistic, but yeah, we're seeing more and more like advocacy, more and more Palestinian spaces, and we're having more and more awareness at schools. We're seeing school kids. This is my favorite. I have a lot of followers who send me their school kids like writing me letters or wearing a Palestine flag or speaking about Palestine. And I think our generation and the new generation is the generation to free Palestine and to end all colonialism legacies. So it's a great, great responsibility. And some people don't, they either monetize of it or don't take it as seriously. And I don't like that. I think it's a huge, huge responsibility.
One of the things that you have been very open about are the issues in relation to mental health. And you talked a little bit about it when it comes to, as you put it, there's no P when it comes to the PTSD, because there's no post when it comes to for the kids.
Yeah, like
Can you talk can you talk a little bit about that?
I remember I was in my house in London, and I remember I went out of the house, and I haven't been out for 2 months. 2 months, literally, just confined into my room, and I felt what the prisoners feel like, but at least I could go to the kitchen. I mean, I don't know. I was so scared of leaving the house. I got death threats. I got, they're gonna kill my mom. They're gonna do. So I was scared. I left the house the first day alone. I'm walking in the street and there's a helicopter, like a helicopter in the sky in London. Wallahi al-Azim, I thought they are bombing me. I ran back into the house and I told my flatmates, guys, we have to evacuate. They're bombing me. Imagine. And I'm actually in my like brain, like I'm in, I'm 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 in my mental capacity. And I thought they are gonna bomb me, the Israelis. So imagine to go through that level of trauma. Imagine what it feels like for the kids. Wallahi, my generation, we don't know what it felt like. In your generation, you can say the old good days. But what are the old good days? Yani for us, we don't have old good days. يعني أنا I was born in 2000. It was the second intifada. بعدين 2008 أول حرب. بعدين 2000, sorry, the first war. Then 2014 and 2012 and 14 and 21 and then 22 and then 23, and now we're going into 24 5. يعني شو؟ يعني what? For how long more? But I didn't want to have kids. And I really, really thought of the idea of giving birth to children who could have my traumatic genes, and like you will, like, even if I give birth in London and they grew up their whole life in London, they are still subjected to trauma because I just witnessed trauma. And it's crazy. In medicine, genes are trauma genes, like they pass through generations. So I obviously have the genes of trauma from my mother, from her grandmother who fled Lemgar in 1948, etc. And I didn't want them. But then my friend told me something. He's like, you're letting them win. They want to shrink us. And now I'm gonna have so many babies. So get ready, guys. I'm gonna have as many babies and I'm gonna call them, Watan for homeland. I'm gonna call them Ibrahim for my best friend who was killed. And I always say Israel wants you to believe that you can't do anything, but this is literally their colonialism talking and scaring you. One person can do so much. Imagine you help one Palestinian family. You help, I don't know, fundraise, educate one Palestinian student, like they did with me. And look, I would have never been here. I would have not spoken English. But you know, it's a lot can be done. We have, I mean, God created us with so much creativity and so much thinking. Yani what differentiates us from animals? Yani sorry, but what? It's our brains and our heart and how we go on. If we manage to dismantle like a greatest oppression of all times, which is slavery, I mean, still exists somehow, but not like before. And if we manage to dismantle apartheid South Africa, why not Palestine? Yani, I give it few years, wallah, we will be in a free Palestine, and I will be dancing dabke and eating knafa.
I'm gonna end it here because I'm gonna tell you what I always tell my friends
Tell me.
is that one day we're gonna be free and we're gonna have the biggest, baddest party, and you're
Oh,
all invited.
oh, please invite me though. I recommend, I think if there's one thing for the audience, which you might have want to ask me about, but I recommend you to listen to more Palestinian voices. So listen to This is Palestine by Diana. It's amazing. I always listen to it on the train or in my free time. I like it. And then read Palestinian authors. Read Suzanne Abul Hawa. Read Mahmoud Darwish. Read the new authors. يمكن maybe you read my book one day. Um, amplify our voices and don't give up. It's so lame to give up. Be cool like me and don't give.
We're gonna be salty like you and cool like you at the same time.
Yeah.
Yara, it's really been a pleasure. It really has. Thank you for listening to This is Palestine, a podcast brought to you by the Institute for Middle East Understanding. The IMEU is a nonprofit focused on giving you access to untold stories, facts, and expert sources on all things Palestine. For more information, please visit our website at www.imeu.org and follow us on Facebook.